Hey there everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm Cindy Daychuck with Queen Bee Creations, and today we're doing a couple of fall thrift flips. So first, I thrifted this broom, which just kind of speaks fall to me. And I just thrifted this old, tired looking little pumpkin. So it does stand. I like the shape, but it's pretty grungy looking. Looks better on camera as I'm showing you than not. But we're gonna zhuzh it up. And you know, I'm just looking for a pair of pliers because these wire things have to come out, but they are down with some heavy duty staples. So what I do envision doing is, you know, this is just kind of dark looking. It's dirty looking, it's old looking, tired looking. So we're just gonna lighten it more than anything else. All right, those other two staples, I'm gonna have to look for you're gonna be too big. I need to get a screwdriver to get underneath them because they are down low. So what I am thinking of doing, I'll futz with that after, is the main part of the pumpkin, I'm gonna, rather than agonizing over covering all this up, I'm gonna do a bunch of dry brushing. So I'm thinking I'm gonna start by dry brushing in white. So I'm using casement, or, you know, so this is a fusion product. I have, I'm using either Fusion or Alchemy because I just kind of picked colors that were on my shelf that were already open, and they are all in one paints. So once I've painted them, I don't have to worry about sealing. So I just want to change out the color, but I can take advantage of this darker color by doing dry brushing instead of solid coverage. Oh, you were just too big. You are not going to work. Oh, you're smaller. And dry brushing is just, for those that are unfamiliar, oh my goodness gracious. And wouldn't you know it, it's two of them. Dry brushing is when you take your brush, you dip it into your paint, you brush a lot of it off and then drag your surface with it. So it does mean that even if I use multiple colors, there's one, I'll be able to still have each of those colors showing, if that makes sense. So what I'm gonna do is just grab a little piece of paper. And when I'm dry brushing, I like to use a rough brush. So if you see this old ratty chip brush, that's perfect. I don't want it to be smooth texture because I don't want the paint to go everywhere. And one of the ways around that, one is doing dry brushing, and the other is by using a paintbrush that's not very even to start. So I'm dipping in a little bit of paint, and then I am offloading. So putting it off on something else, and then I'm going to drag it up my surface. So you can see that we're kind of catching a lot of the uneven surface elements of this. Now I'm just dipping back onto that paper where I had a little bit of paint. And we're just going to be adding little bits of paint this way. Now this is going to dry fairly quickly. So I'll be able to go on with my next coats. And this is green at the top, but I'm going to lighten it a bit too and dry brush it with some of that white. I'll add back in some color in my subsequent coats. But we're just taking advantage of a bit of that color that's on there already, but we're gonna build up color. Look, you could be done at this stage, right? You could just say, oh, I just like it freshened up like that. That's cool. You go do you. I'm gonna keep carrying on with some other colors. So what I do have is Terracotta by Alchemy, and I have Harvest by Alchemy, and I have a little bit of Iron Clay by Fusion. And I'm just going to kind of do the same thing. So in this instance, I'm just gonna dip it a little bit right onto that paper where I was offloading my white brush. And you could use like a little paper plate or plastic plate or, you know, little takeaway container, whatever. And I'm just going to quickly go over this. Now, if you notice, my white is already looking gray. And that's because I'm getting like impurities from the surface arising here. And if it was a piece of furniture, I'd have to go back and I'd have to use a stain blocking sealer, right? For this, it'll be okay. So now we've got the original red. We've got a little bit of that terracotta, and you could go orange if you wanted, right? Now I'm gonna do a little bit of the yellow. And I'm just playing and adding these colors and seeing what goes in the direction that I want it to go in. When it looks good and I like it, then I'm done. So you can build up with the dry brushing, you can build up layers. But this is already going, and I'm just using the same brush because it's pretty dry. But you can see I'm going even lighter with the yellow and not necessarily everywhere because I don't want it to be everywhere. And you get to go back and add in, you know, highlights where you want, more color of something where you want. Just want to get my edges a little bit. All right, I had the darker terracotta. I don't think I'm going with it. I think I'm just offloading onto a piece of cloth over there. I think at this stage what I want to do is just do just a little more white in some spots. That's our multi-tone pumpkin. So this streak was heavier than I thought, but now I'm kind of going, oh, I kind of like that being a little bit heavier there, sort of like the light hitting that rounded curve a little bit. So let's just get a little bit more of that. And I want to go find a lighter green. While my pumpkin is drying, I want to take a look at doing this. Now, I'm of two minds. I mean, you could go and do this up as like a witch's broom, right? If you wanted. I just want to do this up as door decor, like, or wall hanging. So I just want to do it as fall. I just want to use it as the base for fall because not everything has to be Halloween, right? So I pulled some, I was gonna say greenery, but it's not green, but you know what I'm saying. So I pulled some fall toned, oh, you're my dull ones. And look at sharper ones. It's crazy in here. Okay, here we go. I think these will do it. So I'm envisioning having some of this tone hanging down, right? And attaching them into place. And then maybe bringing in a little bit of the darker fall colors. Now I pulled a grab bag of stuff and tons of fall ribbon, not so much Halloween ribbon as fall ribbon, for us to be able to kind of create just kind of like fall decor on this, taking advantage of this kind of straw-like, kind of fallish sort of look to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a couple of things cut and ready and then pull you in to be able to see what the heck I'm actually doing. So you're not just seeing a lot of me and a little bit of the project. Let's see more of the project, less of me. All right, I see these pale yellow ones serving as kind of the base, kind of like the skirt of the broom more than anything else. All right, so our first order of business is to get some of these attached on. Now, you could wire these on if, you know, they had long enough branches and that sort of thing. Oops. These don't, but it'll be okay because we're going to have other things kind of covering it over where any of our glue is showing, so it won't be horrendous. So I'm going to get just a couple more of these glued into place. I don't want tons. I think, you know, maybe another 2 is going to be full enough of these before we move on to looking at other items. I just want to make sure that they're on and they're secure before we carry on. Now, these leaves, right, are little oak leaves, and some of them have, you know, little fake acorns. I'm thinking that rather than doing big branches of them, I'm going to maybe kind of insert them here and there. So we'll create some fullness, but we're not going to have big, heavy pops of that color everywhere, right? We're going to be able to just kind of tuck them in here and there. I'll glue them, of course, but we'll be able to just kind of insert where it makes sense rather than having big branches of them. Now, I think that's full enough. I don't like it being too much. I may still insert my sunflower, but I want to put the ribbon on first. And so what I am doing is just kind of layering some very rustic sort of ribbons together. I've got a burlap with black checker. Then I have kind of almost like a burlappy stripes. I've got a green and burlap stripe. And then just to bring the black back in from the base, I have the black polka dot. And I am just going to kind of use all 4 of these. And I am not a huge bow person, I must admit. So I am going to layer these and tie a pretty basic bow, but because I have a bunch of these layered, there's probably a better way of layering those, I'll be able to separate them out once I get them tied on. I'm going to take, I'm just going to take some of this base ribbon. I don't want to leave so much of just this stem uncovered. So I'm going to take my base, that ribbon, and I am just going to wrap it around my stem. So I bring it down to just about where I'm going to be tying all my ribbons there. And I'm going to hot glue it in place. Perfect. And starting roughly at the middle here, I'm going to take my ribbons and I'm just going to take my ribbons and I'm going to cross them in front. And I'm going to take my wire from the front and I'm going to twist them together. A little tighter. There we go. And then I'm going to wire them onto my base. It's about the only way that I can do this. And then I get to start pulling these pieces apart in whatever way makes sense. Our pumpkin is dry and I like it. It's rustic kind of looking, but I'm just going to zhuzh it up a little. Now, at this stage, there's a lot of things that you could opt to do. The wood is very rough. I probably wouldn't go out of my way to use like any transfers, like floral transfers of things, just because you're gonna have to work to get it down into all those grooves, making it stick. It's possible. It's just probably more work than I want to put into this little thing. So what I have decided, I do have some of these woven straw pieces left from a thrift find that I had where I did, I turned them into, they were in a big bundle like this, big wide bundle. It was just a decor piece, you just sit and I took them all apart and I made a big straw wreath. So that was the first use of it. Now I have some of the leftover pieces. And what I think that I'm going to do, I quite like the idea of having that kind of rough piece sticking down, but I want two of them. So I'm gonna cut this in half. I'm thinking that's easier said than done, but I'm gonna cut it in half. Okay, it's happening. There we go. And I'll be able to glue one down either side. Oh, and that's roughly about the right height, so perfect. So I'm gonna unwind one side, make them pretty much even, and then I'll glue those down, get my hot glue going, and then I just have some maple leaves. And I'm just going to do those across the top. And then I think that's all that it needs. I think it's done. You could, you could try and do transfers if you wanted. You could, I think it would be easier to decoupage on. So if you had some fall napkins that you wanted to decoupage things on, or some of these kind of thin little, almost well, they're not paper, but they're kind of fabric. You could decoupage those on in various looks, or put one of those little mini fences that you can get from the dollar store across the bottom, and maybe have it bow out so it's kind of semicircular at the bottom, and then fill that with all kinds of little foam mini pumpkins and little fall leaves and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of different directions that you could go, and just because I'm going in one direction doesn't mean that you can't go others. And I want you to kind of start to see that there's options and where you could take things. So I'm going one way and I'll just get that stuff glued on and then show you. But these metal leaves, by the way, I'm not reusing on this, but I am saving them for something else, because I'm sure there'll be something else that I'll use them on. So I'm just gonna get some of those leaves glued on, that little bit done, let it firm up, and then I'll show you the finished 2 projects. I am, by the way, on that broom, gonna take another look at it. I think I want to shorten the handle, so I might just saw off part of the straw. I'm gonna use a saw, but it's straw. I could just take a knife, probably a utility knife. That's a better idea now that I'm saying that. And then I'll show you the finished projects. But something like this that starts out very rough, very rustic. Again, lots of different places you could take it. I'm just doing one. All right. This is where we're at. So a couple of things. I like having this sort of thing for texture. Now you could do that with jute that you unravel. You could do some sphagnum moss if you wanted, some raffia, I mean, whatever you happen to have. I'm thinking it's missing something up here. So going into the back 40, what I do have is this one daisy, kind of in the right color tones for, not daisy, sunflower, in the kind of color tones that does not have a stem. And I'm thinking I might be able to get away with it up here, just kind of nestling up there, just to fill this in. I could do acorns. So if you see it with acorns, just know I'm debating still. I'm not liking that it's a little squished. So I think what it is I need to open it up. And to do that, I'm gonna get out a little bit of parchment paper. And I'm gonna get out my shop iron. And I'm gonna put the parchment paper over the petals, not over the front. I don't wanna squish that. But see if ironing it down opens it up. If it does, so that they don't all flop in, because it's squished in a bag, then I will glue that on there. If I can't get the petals to sit out, then I'm gonna get some acorns. And that's kind of the gist of the decision-making process and the things that you go through as to what works and what doesn't, and why your first choice becomes a no-go. So just in case people don't understand what I was talking about, this is working perfect. So I kind of ripped my parchment paper so I have a little bit of a curve. I want to lay out my petals, lay my parchment paper over top, and I'm doing the parchment paper just so that I don't melt the petals, right? But then look at how they now lay flat. So if you're ever left with some of your florals and they've gotten kind of munched up, or they're not laying the way that they should, or they've all gotten kind of closed off, then just know you can do something like this to kind of straighten them out. Okay, let's take a look at our finished projects. So this is our finished broom. Now I cut off this much off the top, and I think that this is a better size, a little bit more practical for what we're looking at. Either, you know, it could hang on the wall, and I've got a little hanger. It could hang on a door. It could lean up on, you know, a buffet, a credenza, you know, anything like that, and be part of, you know, like the backdrop to a vignette. So just nice and simple, really easy, straightforward. $3 broom that I thrifted, and the florals were all from dollar stores. The ribbons came from my mom's stash. So I did get some ribbons from her craft room. We donated, I think almost 600 rolls of ribbons to the senior center craft group. So a couple I saved, but there you go. And then this is our finished little pumpkin. And you can see that made the world of difference. Just, just ironing the flower. But it's a little bit fresher looking now. We didn't agonize over the painting. Again, dollar store. This was like thrifted. These were thrifted and dollar store items. This was, old thrifted cast-offs. Again, you could use jute, you could use raffia, you could use whatever. I just like the textural shift, right? Just adding a little bit more to it. This has the little lever at the back to allow it to stand up on a tabletop. And, it can be as simple as this. And especially if you have like bazaars coming up, just having some of these one of pieces where you've got fall decor or winter decor made out of different unique things. I think last year did I do a pitchfork, just the end of an actual rusty old pitchfork that I turned into some fall decor. I love that. It's unusual, it's different, and if you're doing a market, your booth is not going to be the same as every other booth along the way. You're going to have a lot of unique items that people aren't going to think, oh, they can come back to your table because you have 12 of the same thing. And I got one. Buy it when you see it kind of idea. Let me know what you think of these. Certainly go hitting up your thrift stores for any of the little odds and ends. These are the kinds of things that I pick up when I see them because it's not always in season. I think that broom I picked up in the spring, maybe. I had thoughts of using it in spring, then I had thoughts of using it for Halloween, and then I decided to do fall. So it could go in multiple directions. It's really up to you. The pumpkin, just to give you different ideas, right? And different ways you could have gone. I had debated doing the fencing with the baby pumpkins around the bottom and that kind of thing. And then I decided to go even simpler than that, just to show you that it doesn't take much to be able to prepare a number of things for a bazaar. And I know that when I used to do those kinds of things, I would often, if it's a 2 or 3 day event, I would often be whipping home at night to be able to fill in the booth again with new items because stuff sold better than I thought. And these would be the kinds of things that I would have on hand that were very quick, they were easy. I could get quite a number of them done in a very short period of time. And again, expenses are low. You don't have to charge a lot to be able to move them out of your booth. And that's part of the pricing decision that you need to make too. You want to make enough to justify certainly your costs and your time, but items like this where the costs are extremely low, your time investment extremely low. These are the kinds of things where you make your money because you don't have to price them at such a high rate. Lower pricing helps them move, but your margins are great. Let me know what you think of this one, guys, and certainly fingers crossed that you're finding some cool stuff on your thrifting excursions too, and probably have some great stories to be able to share as well about things that you found and what you were able to turn them around for. Well, let me know. Love to hear those stories too. Looking forward to seeing you on the next one, and until then, take care.